When should you have sex with someone new? And what if you already did too soon? Can you pump the brakes? Today, I'm unpacking the most common questions about sex and early dating from pacing, compatibility, and boundaries so that you can make choices that actually feel right for you. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease. Whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out, I believe dating can be fun. And it's been a long time since I did a solo episode on sex, like literally years. So I wanted to do a refresh on this topic and let's get into it. So if you're new to my show, I just want to let you know that I'm coming from a sex positive place and I'm really about you leaning into what feels best for you. So everything I'm sharing in this episode is general advice and you might not resonate with all of it based on your values and your history and all that stuff. I think ultimately what I'm trying to do here is empower you to show up authentically, especially when it comes to sex, while also sharing some guidance and direction on things that maybe you haven't considered before when making decisions about having sex with someone new, because it is a big decision. With that said, let's get into it. I'm so happy you're here. And by the way, you can connect with me anytime on Instagram. I'm at dating.intentionally. You can also watch all of these episodes on YouTube. My channel is called Dating Intentionally. And you can also shoot me an email. If you don't have Instagram or don't watch YouTube, you can email me at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. If you have questions, thoughts on these episodes, I love getting your comments. I just love anything you do to interact with the show because it lets me know you're listening to it. So thank you for being here. Okay, so let's start with the number one question that I get, which is when do you have sex with someone for the first time? What's too fast? What's too slow? And tell me in the comments on Spotify and YouTube, do you have your own rule for this? What is your approach? Are you a third date person? Are you someone who waits until you are like officially boyfriend, girlfriend, partners, whatever? Tell me in the comments what your personal rule is. I find it really fascinating. And I'm going to share my go to way of thinking about this based on my extensive experience and helping lots and lots of other daters through this decision. So, my go to way of thinking about this is wait until you know you like them, until you know the feeling is mutual, like they like you too, and until you know that your intentions are aligned. Yes, can you figure that out on the first date? Sure. But I think it takes more than one date to see if their actions really align and if they're actually the kind of person you want to be in a relationship with, if you're dating for long term, of course. And yeah, I would say this advice generally applies more for if you're dating for a long term relationship. So, you want to allow time for an emotional connection to form because when you rush the physical, it can be hard for the emotional to catch up sometimes. And that's where you're going to feel at that disconnect that often causes relationships to fizzle. There's a reason why things fizzle after you have sex, especially if it's really, really early. It's because you've jumped into something very intimate before you even know them super well. And there's a disconnect. You've rushed the physical, the emotional is lagging behind, and closing that gap feels hard. And maybe you can relate. Have you been in that situation? Like, that's what it feels like. So that's my way of looking at it. Wait until you know you like them, they like you, and that they're relationship material if you are looking for a long term relationship. That usually takes at least five, six, 7 dates. For me, I think I was waiting until like even a month after meeting someone to have sex with them at a certain point because I was someone who took it way too fast early on. I don't like putting an exact number on it, like 3 dates, 5 dates, 12 dates, because there's also that time component. Like you can do 12 dates in a month with someone, but another person, 12 dates could take 3 months. So that's why I like these more emotional benchmarks and just knowing that the emotional connection does take time. You're not going to have an emotional connection with someone after one date. That's just not how it works. Another way of thinking about this is, do you feel comfortable talking about sex with them? To me, it's kind of wild to think about the times I jumped into bed with someone before even talking about sex with them and how fast that decision was. And it's like, did I even feel comfortable with them enough to talk about it? That's a sign it might be too early. Think about the difference of intimacy, the level of intimacy between talking and having sex, like being naked with someone. There's a huge gap there. So if you haven't gotten to the point where you feel comfortable talking about sex with someone and you're already having sex with them, that might be too fast. That's just my opinion, though. Again, you might have a different approach. The last thing I like to mention when considering your pacing that works for you is how much do you attach after sex? Like, how are you more emotionally invested in someone after you have sex with them? Not everyone is like this. Some people don't really have that emotional attachment with sex. I used to be one of those people. So that's a consideration. So before you go into it, you have to consider your feelings and how you'd feel if they ended things after you got intimate with them, which is super common, unfortunately. So if you know yourself and you think you would feel miserable if they ended it within days of hooking up with you, I would consider waiting until you know them better, until you've seen if they're consistent, if they're consistently showing up for you, if they're in it as much as you, if they're actually committed. I'm not saying that it can't happen if you wait that long, but you're going to hopefully make a better decision if you give it more time, and you're going to hopefully save yourself some pain along the way. I took my own advice in my dating journey, by the way. Like, at a certain time, I learned that if I waited for a more emotional connection, the sex was better. One, I made better decisions that were more aligned with what I was looking for too, and there was less pain involved if there was a reason to end it, right? I kept running into this situation where I would have sex with people before an emotional connection was formed, and after sex I felt more disconnected. And like I was like, "Wait, you're still a total stranger to me. Like we just did that. I just like didn't want I kind of got turned off." So I learned that I had to wait until there was more of an emotional connection for me to actually be really into it. So in the spirit of figuring this out for yourself, I wanted to make a little checklist, or kind of just a list of questions for you to think about if you're ready to have sex with someone you're dating. Do you know your intentions? Do you know their intentions? Do you trust this person emotionally and physically? Like, actually trust them? Can you talk to them about boundaries and protection comfortably? And we'll get more into that. And are you okay with any possible outcome? Those are the questions. I'll put them in the show notes for you so you can like copy paste them in your notes, just keep them on hand. That's what I want you to think about when you're like, is this too early? Is this the right time? These are the questions. So I hope that helps answer this number one question I get. I know it's hard because you're like, Talia, just give me the number of dates, just give me the number of weeks. But it really is just different for every person and every situation. All right, next question. Can you bounce back if you think you took it too fast? So this comes up a lot too, right? Let's say you're in a situation where there's a lot of chemistry, you really like them, you're hitting it off, you are excited to have sex, you go for it, and you're like, oh, wait, I did it again. This is way too fast. Like, I barely know them. How do I pump the brakes? And it's really hard. I think you can do this, but it is really, really difficult. If you go too fast and rush into sex and you want to dial it back, you can do it without talking about it. Like, you can just do it with your actions, as in, don't have dates where there is an opportunity to have sex. Like, don't have dates at home, if that makes sense. Go out, do activities outside the home. If they invite you back, don't say yes. Don't invite them back. Don't give yourself the opportunity if you're trying to slow it down. That will ultimately slow things down. That's one approach. And or you can talk about it and just say, "Hey, I was really excited to take that step, but I realized that I actually want to go slower. What do you think? Can we continue getting to know each other and put the physical aside for a bit?" See what they say. See if they're on the same page, because maybe they are. But then either way, you actually have to follow through on this. And that's the hardest part, because if you have all this chemistry and you really like each other and you're trying to go slow after you've already hooked up, you have to be strong and draw the line and be like, you know what, we're not doing this. We're supposed to be going slow, which is really hard to do if you're really attracted to someone. And it's even harder to do when you've already said out loud, "Hey, we have to go slow. We've got to pump the brakes," because it's kind of fun and sexy to break the rules sometimes. So just be aware of that. The more you're like, "Oh, we shouldn't do this," the more enticing doing it actually becomes, if that makes sense. So just be careful there. It is really hard to do it, but I think it can work. You just need to be strong. You need to be disciplined about it. And if things don't work out because you had sex too early, it probably wasn't going to work out anyway. I think this is really important to say. Like, you can have a successful relationship even if you have sex on the first date. This doesn't matter that much in the big picture, especially if you're meeting the right person at the right time. Like, I've had people on the podcast who had sex on the first date and they're still in wonderful, happy relationships with that person. So it's like, I'm not saying to avoid this at all costs, but it's just more like knowing yourself and knowing what you can handle emotionally and watching out for yourself. That's really all it is in terms of sexual safety and emotional safety. Another question I get about pacing is when do you start talking about it, especially if you want to take it slow? So here's where I can give you a date number. I kind of feel like after date 5 or 6, maybe, you can start having conversations about physical intimacy, and that can be through text or in person. And we'll get into sexting in a little bit, but texting can get a little spicy. So just be aware of that. And I think in person can also be pretty spicy, but I think that when we're behind a screen, we're less inhibited. So it can be easier to talk about sex, talk about preferences. It can be easier when you're texting. When you first start talking about it, you could get into what you each like when it comes to sex, like what kind of sex you like. You could talk about what you want more of in the future, feel for yourself, and make sure to keep it light. This isn't about like what we're going to do together. This is about what you want as an individual, and you're sharing this information with them. It's not necessarily about you having sex with each other at this point. And if you don't have the experience to know your preferences, you can be honest about that too and be like, this is something that's new to me. This is something I'm exploring. I'm excited to potentially explore with you. I just want to be safe about it. I just want to do it this way. Or, like you have to be able to say what you want. And it can be scary sometimes. It can be a little uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That means you have to get used to doing it. I think the key though to keeping the pace slow while talking about sex is to know when to be like, okay, this is getting too heated. Maybe you're having a little too much fun, and to be like, this is as far as I want to go. I'm enjoying this conversation, but like, let's change the subject. Like you don't have to follow that thread all the way through if you're trying to go slow. It's hard, especially when you're into each other. Okay, here's another question. How and when do I express a boundary that I don't want to have sex until we define the relationship? So, great question. And I want to remind you that boundaries are reactive, not proactive. And you can, but you don't have to say, hey, by the way, I'm not ready to have sex until we make this official if it doesn't come up. You know what I mean? So, what does this look like in early dating? It looks like if things are getting heated, if you're making out, you're touching each other, things are moving in the direction towards, okay, we're going to have sex, you can pause and you can say, I don't want to take this step until I'm in a relationship with someone and we're not there yet. And you can lay out exactly how far you want to go, what you feel comfortable with in that moment. And if they make a stink about that, that is a huge red flag to not ignore. The boundary of wanting to wait until you're in a relationship to have sex is very reasonable. Like, if anyone makes you feel like you're being unreasonable, they're not your person and you should let them go. Alternatively, you don't have to wait until things, are heading in that direction. You don't have to wait till the heat of the moment to say anything. If sex comes up when you're talking, or if relationship status, if you're checking in with each other, if kissing comes, like, if anything else comes up, you can have a conversation and just be like, hey, by the way, I like to take things slow and I prefer waiting to be in a relationship to have sex. What do you think? And just have an open conversation about it. And my preferred approach is not bringing it up until it comes up, because they might also want to take it slow, right? You don't necessarily have to over explain this. But if it does come up, then you have the opportunity to be like, hey, this is what's okay with me, and this is what is not okay with me right now. Another topic that comes up a lot is sexual compatibility. I've gone into this topic with guests like Vanessa and Xander Marin. I will link that in the show notes. And the question is, how do you figure out if you're sexually compatible or if it's worth working on? So, have you ever been in a situation where you meet someone, everything's great, you have sex, but it's just not clicking, and you're like, oof, do I want to work on this and teach them everything, or do I just let this go? And I have been there. Just to level your expectations, it is so rare for sex to work really well out the gate with someone new. It takes time to learn each other's bodies and preferences and learn how to work together to co-create an amazing experience from initiation to aftercare. I think most situations you can make it work, but it takes work. Remember, you're co creating your sex life with someone, and the type of sex you have with people will vary because it takes two. Definitely don't try to recreate whatever you had with someone else with a new person. It's not going to happen. It's a whole new dynamic, it's a whole new flavor of sex. Sometimes it won't work though. Sometimes you can't communicate your way into having the sex you want depending on who it is. I have been there. And you know that it won't work if you repeatedly communicate what you need and they can't or won't meet that need. If you want super conflicting things in bed, like if one person it has more specific kinks and the other person is not on board with them, right? That isn't going to work. That's not going to be a great match. And finally, you know it's not going to work if they're not willing to talk about it or work on it with you. If they're super resistant, it's not worth it. It's better to just move on. And I know that sounds harsh, but you deserve to be with someone who is willing and able to talk about sex with you to improve it if you're not quite clicking the way you'd hoped. Finally, just be open to having different flavors of sex in your life with different people. Like the best sex of your life. Also, remember that with the right person, you have so long to work on your sex life and keep improving it. Like, to put it in perspective, I've been with my husband for 3 years and we still have stuff to figure out. We're still working on stuff, but it works because we're both happy and satisfied most of the time. We are both open to talking about our sex life and making tweaks. Those conversations have actually led to real improvements too. And it already started from a great place. But an amazing sex life requires some work. It will evolve as you both grow and change and age. Like it's rare that you won't have to work on it in a relationship. So, all this to say is incompatibility on the first few times is not a deal breaker. What's a deal breaker is if they won't talk about it, if you have really opposite desires and needs that just really conflict, and if you have tried to communicate and it's not getting better. Those are the kind of the three signs that it's not going to work and it's better if you move on. Shout out to the person who asked me to talk about sexting recently in my Instagram DMs or email, I forget. But here we are, we're doing it because I have not talked about this on the pod much, but let's get into sexting. Is there a good pace for that? And by the way, sexting is when you're basically having sex through texting. It's dirty talk. It's exploring each other, but you're doing it through text. So, similar to sex, if you are sexting someone you barely know, that is a form of rushing the connection. I'm not saying you're doomed if you do it. I'm not saying the relationship won't work, but you are building up a lot of pressure and anticipation, which can be really fun and awesome to experience when you time it right, though, because you don't want that to come at the cost of crashing and burning at the end. My rule of thumb here is it's better to avoid sexting until after you've actually had sex with them or at least done some physical stuff with them in reality. I love sexting and I did it with people before meeting, before having sex, and after. And it really did work best when we waited because I found like when you sex with someone before you meet them or actually do it, you have a certain expectation of how it's going to go. And in my experience, I've been disappointed every time. So, that being said, it's a fun, good way to explore preferences. So if you want to do it before sex and it helps you get more comfortable talking about it, which is so important, go for it. I guess my point is you can still end up rushing the connection and causing that disconnect between a sexual connection and emotional connection, which can lead things to fizzling out in a really confusing way. So just consider the timing of it. Generally, don't do it before you've met them. I've made that mistake so many times. I also want you to remember that sexual desire doesn't equate to emotional desire in early dating. So don't confuse sexual desire with emotional desire. So if they want to sex with you and they're trying to get a spicy conversation going and you haven't even met, that's a sign they probably just want to hook up. So keep that in mind. But if you already have this established connection and you want to enjoy some spicy texting, go for it. Like, have fun. Not everyone's into it. Like, I definitely not people who are less into it than me. It's kind of a bummer, but some people are really into it. Some people are open to getting better at it. It can be a really fun way to initiate things. So I'm saying sexting, be playful and be cautious. You know, enjoy it, but consider what it could mean in the bigger picture for your connection. Okay, the next question is, what are your thoughts on requiring an STI check before sleeping together? I think this is completely reasonable, right? You're probably going to have a few conversations about sex before you do it, though. Like, just expect that if this is your standard, if this is your requirement, you're going to probably end up talking about sex a few times before you get to it. You want to avoid a situation where things are already getting spicy and your clothes are off and you're like, by the way, let me see a screenshot of your last STI test. Like, no, that's not what the situation you want to be in. So before you have sex, if the topic comes up, and I hope you're bringing it up because this is what you care about, you can be like, by the way, I'm excited to take that step with you, but I take safety really seriously and I need to see an up to date STI test from you before getting intimate, even if we're using protection. And I'll do the same thing, right? Make sure you reiterate that you're going to do the same thing as well. And if they push back, that's all you need to see. And it's probably for the best if your relationship doesn't move forward. It's definitely adding a step, that's kind of inconvenient, but I am with you if you're better safe than sorry and you want this. Like, some people might not be down. They might just kind of like, this isn't worth it. I don't want to go to the doctor's office and do this, like whatever. And it's their loss, I guess. Okay, the next question is from a woman. She writes, I've been single for 7 years and I'm realizing I usually have sex early when I am not interested in a guy. What's up with that? I relate to this so hard. And I would love to hear in the comments, do you do this? Are you someone who you're like, I'm down to have sex if I'm not interested in them long term? So here's my take on this. And again, please let me know if you agree or disagree. I think it's because we know in an early connection that it can fall apart if you have sex too early. So when you don't care if it falls apart, it's easier to just go for it. Like, when you don't like them, you don't care how it goes. So you're just like, okay, just going to have sex with this person if I want to. I don't think this is a good thing. That's just my explanation. Because for many people, having sex for the first time can be a sign that things are moving forward. So when you take that step knowing you don't want it to move forward, you are messing with their head a bit. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to be the people who are messing with other people's heads. So a better approach, I think, could be offering friends with benefits and letting them know that you don't see romantic potential, just so you can avoid leading them on and see what happens. Like, communicate your intentions. Be like, I don't see romantic long-term potential, but I'm attracted to you. Like, are you open to exploring things physically? Some people might be into that, right? And they'll definitely appreciate your honesty. Two more. I'm new to dating. Is it normal to be sleeping with multiple people before committing to any one person? I don't like using the word normal or not normal. You can date however you want. If you want to sleep with multiple people before committing, that's fine. It's just really important to be upfront and honest, especially with the people you're getting intimate with. Like, this should be part of the conversation you're having, like when it comes to exclusivity and what's going on. And like, that is a part of the conversation you want to have before you jump into bed with someone. That's my advice. I don't judge if you're doing this. I think do whatever you want, just be upfront and honest. All right, last one. How do you tell your date that you don't have a lot of experience? So, the first thing is to stop seeing this as some con or downside of being with you. I want to say that enthusiasm, curiosity, and presence are so much more important than experience. If you're not feeling super confident, I suggest asking your partner to show you, like demonstrate what they like, how they like to be touched and kissed, and all of that. Not only is this super hot for both of you, it helps you get up to speed with what they're into. And of course, you can do the same with them. Every person is different. So that's why I don't think experience matters that much when it comes to like pleasuring each other in bed, but experience does affect your confidence. So I get where you're coming from with this question. I guess I'm just encouraging you to reframe your lack of experience or whatever experience you have is like, okay, how can I lead with enthusiasm, curiosity, and presence instead? Like, what you might quote lack in experience, you can make up with those things, and it's still going to be super fun, super hot, and you're going to have a great time. And look, when you do find the right person and you get to consistently explore things sexually with them, that's a steep learning curve. Like, you're going to get good at whatever they like quickly as long as you're open and curious and enthusiastic and communicative. And even if you have experience, like, no one's perfect. Like, no one is perfect in bed. We all like screw up. We all like, there's always a sense of like, I don't know what I'm doing here, So lower the stakes, take the pressure off yourself, go in with openness and curiosity and enthusiasm, and you're going to be fine. Thank you so much for all your questions. I love getting them. Once again, you can slide into my DMs anytime on Instagram at dating.intentionally. Shoot me an email at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. Drop a comment. Like, you're part of this conversation. So let me know your thoughts and if you have any other questions. And I also want to wrap this up by bringing it back to you. When you think about sex and dating right now, what feels right to you? I want you to forget what you think you should do, what's expected, what other people do, just what feels aligned to you. And here are some questions you can ask yourself. What does feeling safe, ready, and excited to have sex look like for me? What does it feel like for me? Do you know? Like, can you pinpoint that? How do I want to feel after being intimate with someone new? This is so important. How do you want to feel after the first time you're intimate with someone? And what can you do to support that, to make that happen? And finally, what boundaries do I need to set for myself in the future so I can feel happy with my decisions? This one's more about reflecting on what you've done in the past and how you can act differently in the future so that you can feel how you want to feel and be more aligned with whatever it is you're looking for. So I want you to chew on these questions a bit. And again, this is about you showing up authentically and meeting yourself where you are. It's okay if your pace is slower. It's okay if you want to jump in and go for it. It's okay if you want to have a lot of conversations before doing it. It's all up to you. You're in the driver's seat. We've got a new text support to share with you. So, this is for folks who have not heard this segment before. This is where people send me screenshots of their texts with people they're dating and we analyze them on the podcast. So, you can send me your texts on Instagram, send me a screenshot. We can do it on the pod. It's super fun. And if you're on YouTube, we will throw up a screenshot. This is from a woman who met a guy in person and they're texting and they're kind of feeling out their connection. She said to me that she felt uneasy about what he was saying, but she wanted a gut check. So this one is packed with red flags. And what I'm going to read is all from the guy. Okay, this is all from him. He goes, I generally don't date. I'm a bit picky and I don't want to waste mine or other people's time. I prefer to get to know someone first, then take my time. If it's meant to be, then it is an easier transition to be friends. I'm also dating to get married, meaning I'm not a casual dater. I am definitely looking for an emotionally intelligent person who can communicate and who will navigate conflict. Okay. That was all. That was in 4 separate texts, by the way. And let's also keep in mind that these texts are super late. Like, this is being sent at midnight. I don't know if that means anything to you, but the person who sent that in called it out. So here are some things just to recap. He says, I generally don't date. I'm picky. I don't want to waste people's time. I prefer to get to know someone first and take my time. I'm dating to get married, which was hard to hear after he said, I generally don't date. I prefer to take my time, but also don't want to waste people's time. I don't know. And he said, I'm looking for an emotionally intelligent person who can communicate and navigate conflict. Can we file this under shit we don't have to say to people we're dating? Like, who doesn't want that? Anyway, the main red flag here is all the contradiction. Like, dating can be so simple. We don't have to over explain our dating approach to people. When someone texts you like this word salad, and then going on about communication and emotional intelligence, like all in the same breath, it's a sign they're going to be inconsistent. Like, this is a clear sign that this guy is too jumbled to get his own story straight. I told the person who submitted this to trust their gut and not date this guy. If I got a text like this, I would just say something like, I really appreciate you sharing with me, but I think we're just based on our approaches alone, we're probably not a match. He did say he likes direct communication, so that would be a pretty direct way to say that. Anyway, I'm sharing this just in case, like, if you ever get like a wall of text of someone explaining how they date to you, pay attention to what they're really saying. Really, really pay attention. Because again, like I said, dating can be so simple. It is literally just getting to know someone to see if they fit what you're looking for and whatever that is to you. So thank you for submitting that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you ever had a text like that, how did you respond? All right, let's move on to our dating dilemma today. By the way, you can submit your dating dilemma for me to read on the podcast or on YouTube. In the link below, there's a submit a question link. Just click that, pop in your question. It's all anonymous. Thank you to everyone who submitted. Okay. I'm a 31 female who went on a couple of dates at the start of the year with this guy, 31 male, I knew from work years ago. The chemistry was unbelievable. Every date went on for hours and felt like neither of us wanted it to end. We had a lot in common: similar profession, same hobbies, same music taste. He talked about the future and wanting to meet my family. But the catch was, that he ended an 11-year relationship 5 months prior. I'm not really sure what happened there, but there were times you could tell his mind left the room when something reminded him of her. Anyway, after a night where we opened up to each other, the next day I got a text saying he wanted to end things because he didn't want to waste my time and he wasn't ready. I was devastated. It was worse than any actual heartbreak I've ever gone through. I've been on many dates since, but no one compares. Do you believe in right person, wrong time? I have been there. So thank you for sending this in. I'm sure lots of people can relate. And no, I don't believe in right person, wrong time. I think the right person will have the right timing for you. Because the truth is, if the timing isn't right, they're just not it. The right person will show up for you at the right time for you and the right time for them. When I was in the situation, I had a very similar one, a guy I dated. I think actually I was dating him while I was also dating Johnny. And, early on, he had just gotten out of a 10-year relationship and I think I was the first person he met. And I was really aware of how he was treating me like I was his girlfriend, but we barely knew each other. And that was a red flag. I was like, I don't think this guy knows how to show up any other way because he's been in a relationship for so long. And I kind of called him out. I was like, are you sure? Like I'm ready for a relationship. I want to do this for real. It took him a few days, but he was like, yeah, you're right. I want to be single for a while. And that was a bummer because this was one of the first people I met where I was like, wow, I really like him. We align on so much. Like, he's awesome. But I could tell that he just wasn't ready. And he could tell too. And like, we should stop talking. I'm ready for a relationship. I'm going to go pursue that and not wait. And he respected that. And that was that. And then I met Johnny. Like, then I actually started dating Johnny for real. And we're married. So, like, it really is right person, right time. Anyway, I want to encourage you to please, like, don't see this as your last chance at love and connection. Like, there might not be a connection like this again. And it's not because there's no one else out there for you, but it's because every connection you have is going to be different. Like, you're not going to recreate that connection with someone else because everyone's different. And the right person for you will have better timing. This guy wasn't emotionally available. He knew that and he removed himself from the situation instead of wasting your time. And it sucks when that happens. Just know that his decision has nothing to do with who you are and everything to do with where he's at right now. The reason nobody compares, by the way, isn't because he was like the one or anything. And this connection represented a possibility of a future that you want with someone who you seem to click with. That potential, the possibility is really hard to let go of because it leaves you hanging in the middle, right? You experience this real connection and real spark, but the story is unfinished. And that truly does hurt more than when you fully see a relationship through to the end sometimes. All this to say, you deserve someone who's fully ready to show up like you are. And I want you to keep going and don't put your heart on hold for this guy. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear your take on right person, wrong time. Do you wait? Do you not wait? I'm always team don't wait, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. All right, well, that's all I have for you today. I hope this helped you kind of get clear on your pacing with sex and what you want for yourself, what makes sense for you. And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me. Don't forget, you're doing great. And if you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or a fresh perspective, please share this episode with them. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a long way for me. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.